And in the spirit of reconciliation, I would like to begin by acknowledging the land that I, as a Calgarian and an employee of the Bow Valley College, live on, learn on, and play on. We honor Mohkinstis, which is located on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy. We are grateful to be surrounded by the diverse beauty of the mountains, prairies, foothills, and rivers. We honor the indigenous peoples of this land, which include the Kainai, Siksika, and Piikani First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda, and the Métis Nation Region 3. It is on this land where we endeavor to support all people to live in relation to each other and the land. Feel free to tell us where you are joining in the chat. And welcome to everyone and good afternoon. I am just fiddling with the screens that I can see. I want to make sure I get the right view. Okay. What you see on this screen is one of the 7 recommendations of Bow Valley College to its faculty in addressing generative AI and its impact on teaching and learning. The overall aim of the recommendations is to provide an educational experience that is relevant and has integrity in the age of generative AI. In this particular statement, I sense a bit of worry and a preventative caution. A worry that Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, may take a backseat as we make room for generative AI, and an emphasis to make sure that does not happen. So today's conversation is about how generative AI empowers or inhibits practices that are needed for learning to be accessible for all learners, for learning to be universal. I will also share with you the experience of one of my colleagues in the hopes that you would be able to share more such examples. And through our collective wisdom, we can identify strategies that will work for our context and will allow us to remain committed to universal design for learning practices. Before I delve into these areas, I have a couple of disclaimers to make. First, that I am not an expert in the latest and greatest AI related technology, or UDL for that matter. So, throughout this session, I will share examples, and that's what they are, just examples. At any point that you know of other more recent facts, tools, or strategies, please share them in the chat so we can all benefit from it. Also, my colleague Jennefer Rousseau has collaborated with me in preparing this session. She has been my inspiration and mentor when it comes to universal design for learning. She's not able to be with us, and I have her permission to relay her experience here today. To begin, let's review what I mean by Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, so that we can all be on the same page. UDL helps us change the environment and eliminate barriers to enhance student success. The idea is to recognize um, an exclusion for, even if it's just for a single student, solve for that one, and then extend it to many, to all of our classes or a group of students, and learn from the diversity and the impact that it makes. At Bow Valley College, our place of reference for UDL is, for the most part, the CAST organization and the way they have created a framework for universal design for learning. Our purpose for adhering to the ways of UDL is to give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. UDL offers flexibility in the ways the students access material and show that they know and show what they know. It also looks for different ways to keep students motivated and engaged. Some practices that we put in place at Bovali are giving assignment options, enabling and allowing for flexible workspaces, providing content in different formats like audio, video, and text, or some simple but very critical acts like sharing the learning objectives at the beginning of a class. So, what are some things that you do with the intention of universal design for learning? I'm going to pause here for a couple of minutes while I look at the chat. Uh, Tell us, what are some things that you would be doing or you are doing in your classes? I'm looking on the side, I'm looking at the chat, um, co-constructing assignments, different assignments, lots of multimodal learning with highly visual text, encourage students to submit assignments in a format of their choosing, pre-recorded lectures, sharing cultural understandings of different topics, multi-pathways to showing what you know. Excellent, wonderful. It seems like many of us are on the same page when it comes to UDL. Thank you for sharing those ideas and keep them coming. My next questions now are, um, how could generative AI impact these good practices? Should we worry about UDL because of generative AI? Feel free to continue putting in the chat, or we could perhaps hear from a couple of people. If you can enable your mic and speak up, that would be nice too. I can't see if anybody's hand is up or if their mics are on, but I welcome any comments here. How could generative AI impact these good practices that we have put in place for universal design for learning? Should we worry? Thank you, Ben. So it can aid, it can help. More opportunities for AI to support the students. It can help, I think. Thank you, maybe Amy. Nicola is saying, I think we have to be careful with the prompts to make sure UDL is considered by AI. That is a great point. Using AI to support writing. It can also hinder access potentially if students have different access to technology. So this whole idea of equity and access. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Um, when we look at, similar to a lot of things that you've said, when we look at the literature on what AI can do and what capabilities we need for removing barriers for learners, generative AI shines as an enabler of UDL. all the different examples and cases of AI as an enabler could be put in these three main categories, or so I think. You may have arguments for more or examples for more, but these are the categories that I could come up with. Enhancing accessibility is one big container. Adaptive learning is another, and then collaborator or tutor AI as a collaborator is the third group. Let's look at these three in a bit more details. So we have been using artificial intelligence, so the older versions of it, for different forms of accessibility and accommodation for quite some time now. And generative AI has only improved them. So these are some functional examples that I could think of. Tools that help us to convert text to speech, speech to text, image descriptions. What else are you familiar with, or what else are you using in your classes? You could name a tool if there is something that you are really recommending, or just a functionality that you use different tools for. Music from text, interesting. Okay, code generation for accessibility, okay. Thank you for sharing these ideas, and keep them coming. I do want to mention while you're doing that, these types of tools usually come with a hefty price tag. So it's not often that we see a well-maintained accessibility tool that's freely available. Quite often we need to purchase licenses and whatnot for them. Then there is the adaptive learning. It has been a dream of educators for decades now, and generative AI seem to be delivering it to an acceptable level now. These tools adapt to each student's unique learning pattern and adjust content in real time. They also ensure tailored attention for students with different abilities. So you may see different types of adaptive learning tools. Some of them are a bit more primitive, but in their advanced forms, they are actually, they could actually be considered as an accessibility tool as well. And then AI as a collaborator or tutor. This is when we get our learners to use AI to study, and we actually encourage them to do that. One of my favorite tools when it comes to tutoring is this one that was created by Contact North in Ontario. If you have any favorite tutorials, feel free to put them in the chat. They do, like, at the graduate levels and whatnot, you will get a lot of tools that you can use for research, for a lot of other things. These are, I'm just, again, just sharing examples of what it can do for us and for our learners. Now, if we looked at how generative AI inhibits UDL, you probably won't find a lot of cases, or any cases for that matter. This is the response I got from Microsoft Copilot when I asked, how does generative AI inhibit universal design for learning? It basically told me that I was off to lunch with that question, that I was asking the wrong question. So I asked a different question, and Copilot had a lot to say. Reflecting on the statement that I shared at the beginning of the session, those recommendations that Bow Valley College provided, they came under the title or the umbrella of generative AI and academic integrity. So I changed my question to ask, how does generative AI inhibit academic integrity? And Copilot came up with an extensive list of ways. So while generative AI has penetrated teaching and learning in many ways, I think we have seen the most and perhaps the fastest changes to assessment practices. These changes are usually in the service of, or at least in the name of, academic integrity. So I think academic integrity is a way of being, it's a way of being in educational environments, and is a lot more than just assessment practices. However, for now, let's focus on assessment practices just to scope our conversation within the time that we have. Let's begin by getting a sense of how much your assessment practices have been impacted since the launch of ChatGPT, which was the loudest of all the generative AIs, and it was announced in November of 2022. So I'm putting this link in the chat, and you can also see the QR code on the screen. There are only 1 or 2 questions depending on how you respond, and it's anonymous, so no names will be recorded. Let's take a minute and answer these questions. Okay. So some people don't need to make any changes. Uh, some people have completely changed their approach, and some have made some changes, but they are not enough. That's the largest group here. And some need to make changes, but they don't know where to begin. Of the people, then in terms of what changes you've made, those of you who have made changes, most people have tended to have more in-class activities than before. Then there's the people who have reduced the number and or value of writing assignments. And I have more in-class exams than before, and there is an other categories as well, other things that are not one of the options here. Um, there are very few who have who are doing writing assignments only in class. Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, so now I want you to take a minute again just to reflect whether or not any of the changes you have made are or will become a barrier for learning for some or all of your students. This is a personal reflection, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let you think about this. Feel free to put it in the chat if you wish to, but really this is personal. It's okay if you don't want to share it. The question is whether or not any of the changes you have made are or will become barriers for learning for some or all of your students. Does anyone want to share their reflection? can enable your mic and speak up, or whether it relates to their own practice or general practices you've seen in assessments because of generative AI. I did promise it was going to be a personal reflection, so I'm not going to prompt any further. If you don't want to share, that's okay. But here, I just want to emphasize that recognizing how changes that we make to ensure integrity of our assessments could put up walls and barriers for some of our some of our learners. This recognition is just the first step. Then comes the creative work of finding the right balance, the dance between academic integrity and UDL. How far do we go with academic integrity before completely paralyzing UDL and doing that cost benefit assessment there? Okay. Okay, and we have Nicola and Dalbir who are recommending a couple of ways to reduce the harm rather than okay. So then I want to introduce you to someone who has tried this dance between integrity and UDL and keeping them effective. And she's actually had some success. So Jennefer, my colleague I mentioned at the beginning, is an English instructor in our School of Foundational Learning. Um, Her commitment to UDL is probably best described in the TED Talk that she gave 6 years ago. I'm going to put the link to that TED Talk in the chat. We won't have time to listen to it here together, but I do encourage you to listen to it. It's about under 9 minutes, I believe. It's not that long, but it's very impactful. So Jennefer was seconded for 2 years to the Center for Academic Innovation. That's where I work. And her role was to really focus and provide professional development in the area of UDL to the faculty across the college. So she did some great work while she was part of our team at the Center for Academic Innovation. At the end of her secondment, she went back to classroom. And by that time, generative AI was the dominant talk and worry of post-secondary educators. And the courses that she taught relied heavily on producing writing, whether it was as a learning activity, so produce writing to learn, or to show evidence of learning as an assessment. So, and then there were different strategies and recommendations to address the concern of students using generative AI to do their writing work. So what do we do to prevent them from using it? And the loudest around her was to make all writing activities in class. So basically making getting the students to produce a piece of writing in one class. So Jennefer thought of how she loved to write with a cup of coffee, sitting next to a window in the comfort of her home. She thought of the anxiety that learners would feel trying to create a coherent essay in 90 minutes in the quiet confounds of the classroom with 35 or 40 other students around them. It all felt like being taken hostage. And she thought, how creative could one be in this type of situation? So she didn't do it. She allowed the learners to continue writing their essays where they were comfortable, and those essays, whether they were critical, reflective, or creative, they could do it outside the classroom. um, and wherever they could do their best thinking, and they had the opportunity to rethink and refine their work before submission. What she did do differently, though, she started holding a sharing circle before engaging in that writing. So she allocated an entire class time to this. And in the classroom, everyone sat in a circle facing each other. And one by one, the students shared their ideas for their upcoming writing activity. Jennefer gave them feedback when it was a viable idea and kind of guided them what direction they could focus on. And then there were times that the student would share an idea and it wasn't the best idea, or it wasn't aligned with what was expected. Then she would ask the other students, so um, what do you think Flora could do to improve this, or what could she do differently? And then the students started brainstorming, and it was like everybody coming to help each other. So this whole start of the project um, gave the students that confidence that they were on the right track. And having that confidence that I'm on the right track, I'm writing about the right thing, was the first deterrent from cheating and using the tools they were not supposed to. She also addressed the elephant in the room head on, and by telling them why they shouldn't use generative AI, and gave them that confidence and told them that the impact of what they're doing on their learning, on their future, and also that she actually wanted to see their work, not the work of a machine. So the first semester she did this, there was only 2 cases of academic dishonesty in that class of, I think, about 35 or 40 students. And I wonder if it was a coincidence that both the students who did use AI had missed the sharing circle class. So she then implemented a similar strategy in her online class and required the students to attend a live sharing circle session before engaging in their writing assessment work. So she got the highest participation rate she has ever experienced in an online class after that activity. And she also got some really good quality writing work submitted after that. So, and Jennefer is one of many examples. I have been talking to many instructors across the college for different purposes, and I've been collaborating. Well, they have been collaborating and helping me in creating professional learnings that are relevant to the life of our faculty, and hearing similar stories from them. I think that as instructors and faculty start to have these heart-to-heart conversations with the students and provide different types and levels of support for them, just with the purpose of mitigating cheating and with generative AI, they are getting some extra and perhaps unintended benefits. Um, they strengthen the relational and the emotional aspect of their teaching. And these aspects are intrinsic motivators for students and positively impact their engagement. So, which is the first pillar of UDL, really, when we look at, according to the CAS guidelines, multiple ways of motivation and engagement. So, I find this to be hopeful. The fact that there are ways to not only reduce academic misconduct, but actually strengthen our teaching, and not be scared of generative AI. It's a tool that's going to stay with us. We have to make our peace with it. We have to figure out how to use it so that it works for us. But if you're scared of it and all we're thinking about how do we stop people from using it, we kind of lose the main point here. So I can see, I find it um, hopeful that there are ways to balance all of these and continue to be effective teachers, teachers who are compassionate and understanding, teachers who can motivate and continue to do this work and not sacrifice universal design for learning for the sake of academic integrity. So with that, I have a final question for you. Considering your context, so Jennifer's situation, this was an English class. It was a relatively small class if we compare it to university settings, but for a college setting, that might just be the medium size of classes. But considering your context, the topics that you are teaching, your class sizes, and all of that, I want you to think about how you could turn the challenges of academic integrity caused by generative AI into opportunities for more authentic and more effective learning activities and assessments. I want to leave you with this question, and I have I've grayed out sharing response because I didn't know how much time we would have at the end. But this is it. I wanna hear from you. I want to know how what ideas you have, but also if you have any questions about the story that I've shared or anything else that I've shared today. Thank you.